Did you know that the average person spends over 60 hours every single year walking through supermarket doors? Yet it is one of the top places where language learners experience sudden, freezing panic.
I completely believe that statistic because just yesterday I saw a man staring at a carton of milk like it was a complex math equation. And honestly, we have all been there. When the cashier looks at us and speaks at lightning speed,
Well, I hope you were not staring at me because I definitely spent 5 minutes analyzing the differences between various brands of butter last Tuesday, which is exactly why we are diving into this today.
oh, I would never mock your butter obsession, Peter. But it is true that stepping into a local food market or a massive shop can feel like entering a completely different universe where your normal vocabulary just disappears.
That is the goal of our show today, to give our listeners the exact tools they need so they can walk into any shop in the world, grab what they need, and chat with the staff without their heart racing.
Exactly. And we are not just talking about reading a simple list, because anyone can look up a word in a dictionary. But we want to help you understand the actual flow of a real conversation.
Right, because when you are standing there, you do not just need words. You need to understand the rhythm of the language, like how to answer those quick questions at the front of the store.
And let us be honest, Peter, you usually choose the longest line because you are too busy daydreaming about your next meal to notice which checkout is actually moving faster.
Hey, that is a strategy because it gives me more time to practice my listening skills by eavesdropping on the conversations around me, which is actually a great tip for our audience.
That is a very diplomatic way to defend your terrible queuing choices. But I suppose we can let it slide if it helps people learn how locals actually talk to each other while buying food.
Let us start from the very beginning of the trip, because the moment you walk through those automatic doors, you are faced with a choice that can change your entire afternoon experience.
You mean the classic dilemma of choosing whether you are going to carry a small plastic container or roll a massive metal cage around the floor, which always ends up being way too big for what you actually need?
Exactly. And if you choose the wrong one, you end up carrying 15 items in your arms like a failing juggler because you were too proud to grab the proper equipment at the front door.
I have seen you do that, and it is truly a beautiful performance. But the key is knowing how to talk about these tools naturally depending on which country you are visiting.
That is a great point because your location changes the language completely. And if you use the wrong term, people will still understand you, but you might get a funny look from the teenager working the floor.
Which is exactly what we want to avoid. So let us make sure our listeners know how to navigate the physical layout of the building before they even think about checking out. Speaking of the layout, have you ever noticed that supermarkets are secretly designed by evil geniuses who want to trick your brain into buying things you absolutely do not need? Which is why they put the fresh flowers right at the front to make you feel relaxed?
That is a proven psychological trick, Nicole, because the smell of fresh blooms puts you in a happy mood, making you far more likely to spend extra money on luxury items as you walk deeper into the maze.
It totally works on me because I always end up with a bouquet of roses and a fancy cheese that I cannot even pronounce, completely forgetting that I only came in to buy a simple loaf of bread.
Well, before you get lost in the cheese section, we need to look at a fundamental grammar rule that trips up almost every intermediate learner when they are trying to find their items.
Oh, you mean the confusing world of countable and uncountable nouns? Which becomes incredibly important when you are looking at shelves full of different types of food.
Exactly, because you can count individual items like apples, tomatoes, or bottles of water, which means you can use words like many or a few when you are talking about them.
But then you have things like meat, rice, sugar, or even advice from the store clerk, which are completely uncountable. So you have to use words like much or a little instead.
Right, so you would never ask someone if they have many rice. Instead, you would ask how much rice they have, or you would look for a packet of rice to make it countable.
That is such an important distinction. And it also applies to how we use articles, because you can say, I want a banana, but you would say, I want some cheese, not a cheese.
Unless you are buying a whole wheel of cheese, which I know you love to do, but for regular shopping, using some is always the safest bet for uncountable items.
Another great grammar tip for this specific environment is using indirect questions to sound extra polite when you are asking the employees for assistance.
Instead of walking up to a busy worker and shouting, "Where is the milk?" which sounds a bit aggressive, you can soften it completely by using a beautiful indirect structure.
Yes, like starting with, "Excuse me, could you tell me where I can find the dairy section?" Which automatically makes the worker want to help you because you sound so lovely.
Notice how the word order changes in the second part of that sentence, so it becomes, "where I can find," instead of, "where can I find," which is a classic intermediate English pattern.
It sounds so much more natural and native, and it guarantees that the staff will give you a friendly answer instead of just pointing at a sign and walking away from you. Now that we have the grammar sorted out, we absolutely need to arm our listeners with 5 essential vocabulary words that will instantly upgrade their shopping game from beginner to confident intermediate.
The first one is aisle, which refers to those long corridors between the shelves where all the products are stacked. And the biggest trick here is that the letter S is completely silent.
I always tell people to imagine they are walking down the aisle of a plane or a church because it is the exact same pronunciation and describes that clear pathway through the goods.
Our second word is produce, but here we are using it as a noun with the stress on the first syllable, which refers to all the fresh fruits and vegetables in that specific department.
That is a tricky one because as a verb, it means to make something. But in the store, if you ask for the produce section, you are looking for healthy greens and berries.
Third, we have barcode, which is that little series of black and white lines printed on every item that the electronic machine reads to calculate your final bill.
And if that machine cannot read it, the employee has to type in the numbers manually, which usually leads to a long wait and a lot of awkward smiling from the customer.
Fourth is receipt. And just like aisle, this word has a silent letter because the letter P is completely quiet. So it sounds like receipt, which is your official proof of payment.
Never leave without it. And finally, our 5th word is loyalty card, which is that plastic card or phone app that gives you special discounts and points every time you spend money.
Moving on from single words, let us look at 4 brilliant idioms you can use to describe your shopping habits, starting with to shop around, which means comparing prices in different places.
My grandmother was a master of that. She would walk to 3 different stores just to save 5 cents on her favorite tea, which is the definition of shopping around.
Next is to cost an arm and a leg, which is a fantastic way to describe those luxury organic items that are way too expensive for a regular weekly budget.
I said that exact phrase last week when I saw the price of those imported truffles. They truly cost an arm and a leg, and I had to put them right back on the shelf.
Our third expression is to talk shop, which actually means talking about your work or business even when you are completely outside of the office, like during a casual dinner.
Peter and I are completely guilty of that because even when we are buying groceries together, we end up talking shop about our next podcast episode.
And finally, we have to drop until you drop, which means shopping for such a long time that you are absolutely exhausted and cannot walk another single step.
Which is exactly how I feel after navigating the weekend crowds. So I think that is the perfect note to wrap up our session today.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us at Peter's English Lab. Make sure to practice these phrases, and we will see you in the next episode.